Welcome to another edition of the Best Business Minds, where we interview business leaders and academics that write thought-provoking books. I'm Marc Kramer, a serial entrepreneur who consults with family businesses and entrepreneurs. And today we're lucky to have Kent Billingsley, author of Entrepreneur to Millionaire. And don't you think you need to change that title to Entrepreneur to Billionaire? Because anymore, it seems like nobody cares about being a millionaire, even though 99% of the people aren't. They're like, shit, if I'm not a billionaire, what does it all mean at the end of the day? So we're thrilled to have you here today. So Kent, give us a little bit about your background first. Tell us about your background.
Yeah, and I actually want to answer that question, why not billionaire? Mark asked me, he goes, well, why don't you teach people how to become billionaires? And I said, I haven't done that yet. I've made a lot of people millionaires and multimillionaires, and I've got a roadmap I can prove. But that next level, billionaires, and besides, if tens of thousands of entrepreneurs and business owners had 7 figures in the bank right now, COVID wouldn't be a problem. They don't have money in the bank, and COVID is a nightmare because of cash flow and things like that. But anyway, yeah, to answer your question, I was actually in the corporate world half my career, about 20 years, half my career, 20 years building companies and helping entrepreneurs and CEOs. And back in about 1995, inside an organization called EDS, which was owned by General Motors, the leadership had come to me, and I was working on mega deals, anything above 500 million, average about $1 billion. I was doing Salesforce automation and Salesforce optimization and transformation. And they asked me to put together a team and go back into the business units, the strategic business units, and find out, are there ways to grow revenue and sales faster, be more consistent, and above all, be more profitable? How can the business units actually make more money? And I formed a team of experts, inside and outside experts, which using outside experts was kind of frowned upon. But we went back into business units, Mark, and the big aha after spending a year inside the business units and finding tens of millions of dollars in new sales and revenue and even profits was they lived, or their mantra was more for more. So how do we, we have to spend money to make money. We have to hire more people. We have to do more marketing. We have to do all these things to generate the top line. And for their leadership team and my team, it was, yes, you're achieving growth, but you're buying that growth and you're eating profits and what I call wealth inside a business. And so I did that for a few years, got promoted up to chief marketing officer, chief strategy officer of $1 billion unit operating out of Asia, out of Hong Kong. And then I came back, built out a software company. In the last almost 20 years now, I've been helping build out startups to transforming $1 billion organizations. So that's my background and what I've been doing.
Okay. And so why did you name your business the Revenue Growth Company?
Yeah, it's actually the value proposition, because instead of trying to grow businesses, instead of trying to make your businesses bigger, what I want people to learn, and really what's in my book, is how do you grow revenue? How do you scale revenue against your assets? For example, most companies don't need more clients. They need to generate more revenue from existing clients. They don't need more salespeople. They need their salespeople to optimize to scale 2, 3, 5x what they're doing today. They don't need more products or services. They need to learn how to generate more revenue per product or service. And I can go on and on and on. That's called scaling revenue against an asset. When you do that, you eliminate a lot of costs. You eliminate a lot of things that eat profit and take away the potential wealth. And to give you an example of that area, very few people actually know the cost of having a single salesperson. Most CFOs don't even know. There are actually 8 categories of costs associated with a salesperson. Now, if you're in B2B in some of these markets, you have to have salespeople. If you're in complex sales, you have to have salespeople. But these 8 categories of cost eat up and chew through profits and potential earnings that could be going back into the company or could be going into bonuses and money for the employees, stakeholders, and owners.
So that gives me the next question about your book, and then we're going to dive directly into the book is
Yeah.
what are the three things you would like readers to walk away with, and why should they get the book?
Yeah, the biggest message of all is every single business. Now I've been inside, oh gosh, several thousand companies, and every single business, literally everybody on the call today that runs a business, they could actually double and triple their sales, revenue, or profits using the resources that they have today. That is the ultimate message, that you don't need to spend any more money, any more time, burn any more resources, and you could generate more sales, revenue, and profits if, and here's the key, you don't have to work harder or smarter, you're still working. You've got to wake up the sleepy areas of your business. You've got to wake up those areas that aren't working for you, that are just kind of exist, and turn those on to where those areas of your business and all areas of your business actually create demand, and then help convert that demand into new cash clients and contracts.
What are those areas that are overlooked typically?
Yeah, the big ones that burn resources and waste money, and I mean just so easy to go fix, is one of them is targeting, and that is who are your perfect clients? Who is that client that you should have that in your portfolio? And I was doing a live event a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking through what is a perfect client, who is a perfect client. And I asked one of the people in the room, I mean, how many in your portfolio? And they said they had 20, 30 clients. I said, how many of those are your perfect clients? They said only a couple. And I said, why? And they said, well, we don't always get the perfect client. We have to sometimes take on the client that maybe doesn't pay on time, or they're not the best to work with, or they don't handle their responsibilities, or they blame things on us. I mean, they just went through the litany of what makes a bad client. And I said, well, that's your fault. That's your system that's attracting and filtering the wrong clients. And if you can wake up just targeting, just simply who your business is trying to attract, if you'll change that and transform that into those that you want, in the right demographics, the right psychographics, and the right characteristics, your business can transform right there. And not only don't you have to spend another dollar or hour doing it, you don't have to spend any or even less, because, and the way I'll say it, I'll just characterize this: too many companies are trying to win with losers. And what I mean by losers, not derogatory, I just mean they're just not the best clients. And if in targeting and identifying your perfect client profile, you win with winners. I just sent an email off to a potential client. I know he will open the door to 5 or 10 more clients, and I don't have to do any work. I don't have to spend a dollar in marketing or sales. He will open up 5 or 10 as I can get a program and put things in place for him. He becomes my marketing and sales organization. That's $0. That's no time. Yes.
So what's the winner client profile? I mean, what's that winner client look like?
So there are 3 components. So as you're working to identify your perfect client profile, there are 3 things that you have to look at. And the first one is, and this is the most common one that almost everybody does to some degree, they're just usually a little sloppy, is the demographics. And the demographics are the facts or figures, the quantifiable parts or components that say, okay, certain industry, certain size, number of employees, certain locations, certain products or services. These are demographics, and you can research those, you can identify those, you can find those pretty easily on the internet. The next set of attributes you have to look at are what I call the psychographics. And this is where 2 things happen. One of them is it's much harder to identify, but this is where you make the money or save the money. And making the money is just as important as saving the money, because that's how you create wealth inside your business. And the psychographics are how does the buyer feel? How does the prospect think and feel about where they are? What is their mental construct? What emotions do they go through to make decisions or go through change? And it's so critical that you have those, because it's interesting. Emotions are the motivator. Emotions are those things that trigger the actions. It's not the logic. It's not the, oh yeah, we need your product or service, or this is important. It's that Here's why I have to have it. Here's why emotionally I'm frustrated, I'm disappointed, I'm upset, or I'm excited or elated about what the audience's products or services could do. And the challenge there is you can't buy that. I can't, without working with you, I can't tell you what the #1 psychographic is until we talk through and understand who are you targeting. Because your perfect client profile sets that up to where, for me, and I'll give you an example, one of the psychographics I look for is frustration. If you're happy where you are today, if you feel your business is making enough sales, revenue, and profits, then you don't need me. You don't have a problem. You're probably not frustrated or disappointed. If you are, if you do have that emotion, there's a good chance you're willing to change or do things differently. That sets up a perfect client profile. The third one, the third part of this is what I call characteristics. And this is where not all clients are good clients. There are those clients out there that everybody, if you've been in business 6 months, you probably have one that you just go, I love these guys. I love how they communicate. I love their transparency. I love their willingness to handle their responsibilities. They don't beat us up on price. They don't try to over negotiate with us. They pay on time. I mean, you can just go through those characteristics.
Yes.
What's that?
They're the dream client.
They're the dream client. And my whole point is, build your business to attract and filter dream clients. The filtering part is really critical. You've got to say no to people. And the way I say no is, tell me how bad you want to change. Tell me how bad you want to build a system to create wealth. And if they can't articulate their willingness to want to do that, there's not a fit. I'll send them off to a training company, or I'll send them off to get some coaching. But if you're willing and have that desire, that burning desire to transform your business, then we might be a good fit, because you've got the problem I can solve. So those are the what I call the characteristics of the profile of your perfect client profile. I can't tell you what it is for your company. This is what you have to work through to develop, and I equate this, or I characterize it. This is like the head of a golf club, whether you play golf or not. If you're off 1 degree, you're out of bounds. You can't win. If you're off by 1 degree, or you're going to hit the ball out of bounds, you can't win the game. And that's why targeting is so important. Plus, your targeting sets up almost every decision after that. Your targeting sets up every decision in sales and marketing after that. With ineffective targeting, I can almost guarantee you your marketing and sales is an activity or a spend, not an investment.
You mentioned in your book, you say that growth and greater revenue don't always translate into optimizing your product, optimize profit production. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, and I'll give you a statistic, and this one's just absolutely frightening. Working for, I've been doing this for literally 25 years. I've been running my own company for 20 years. 98% of all businesses, entrepreneurs, especially small businesses, struggle with cash. They don't have enough cash on hand. They have inconsistent cash flow. They have almost no working capital, and they're dealing with lagging receivables or collections. 98%. That was pre-COVID. That was pre-COVID. In COVID, the numbers are just absolutely frightening and destroying companies. And the reason for that is, as business leaders, and some of you are really guilty of this, you're spending so much on sales and marketing to create that top line, to attract clients, to convert clients. You're spending so much. You're writing these big checks for SEO. You're writing these big checks to advertising firms and PR and your banner ads. I mean, you're just writing all these checks, but that's not an investment. That's a spend. And so if you get the growth, you can never optimize the wealth your business should be making. And so you've got to go through the process, and I call it a roadmap. You got to go through the roadmap to make sure you're making an investment, so you're spending the least amount of time, money, and resources generating the highest level of growth possible. Let me give you an example that's just so real time. Yesterday, working with a team, we were strategizing through their pipeline. This is the pipeline acceleration I talk about in chapter, 9, 10, or 12. And we were talking through $1,000 contract. Now, that's not a big one for this company. Their average is probably $300,000 or $400,000. We were talking through the contract. And as we worked through the value proposition, it became clear that they had a compelling ROI for a $500,000 contract. But they were willing to initially settle, and they wanted me to help them convert this $100,000 contract. And they were like, well, let's just get it off the pipeline. Let's get it through. And I said, well, wait a minute. Let's talk through this, and let's identify the layers of the value proposition, the business case, to see what this would really do for your client. And after about a 20-minute conversation, this contract now is worth about $500,000, and it is absolutely more compelling than the $100,000 contract they thought they were selling. So now all of a sudden, that's 4 more contracts they don't have to sell, sales cycles, or more sales support, more sales resources, more sales management. That's 4 more $100,000 contracts that could be consummated in one agreement. And so the point here is getting bigger is neither better or good, because it never optimizes. Now, if you can scale against an asset, if you can make your contracts bigger, if you can make them sell them with higher margin, if you can convert them faster. And another thing that most people don't understand is speed is a very critical part of this game. And so I wrote a whole chapter on how do you accelerate from contact to contract? How do you compress that time so you actually bring more value to the client? This is not sales training stuff about how do you manipulate your client to buy faster. No, this is actually how you accelerate the value proposition development with your prospect so that it converts so much faster than it normally would. 2 things happen. One of them is if you convert your opportunities faster, you lower your cost of sales, you double your capacity or triple your capacity. Now all of a sudden you're getting top line and your bottom line is protected. Your cost savings. That's how we create that wealth that I'm talking about. Does that help, Mark?
Yeah, I think so. I had a client in Latin America, and they provided ham, and Walmart kept trying to do business with them, and they kept turning Walmart down. They had an algorithm that basically supplied ham to parts of the world when there was some kind of problem and there was a shortage of ham. And they said they would not supply anybody where they couldn't make a 25% net margin. And so they kept telling Walmart for years, and they're a pretty sizable family business, that they had no interest in any business with Walmart because Walmart doesn't allow them to make enough money on it. So that's what they looked at. Here's a question we have from the audience. Frustrated people are angry and scared of things are going to go wrong. If you're targeting frustrated clients, don't you risk getting their bad vibe and putting yourself in the position of being a target of anger generated elsewhere and nothing to do with you?
Well, the answer to the question, as I understand the question, is what is the root cause or foundational issue of their frustration? In other words, why are they frustrated? I mean, there are just people that are only happy when it rains. That's not a perfect client profile. And so what we're looking for here is you're looking, and I'll expand that even further, because this is a very important point too. There's both negative or let me say positive frustration and negative reasons for frustration. That being said, about 2/3 of the people that come to me, they're frustrated with lack of success. Their things aren't working right. Their sales turnover, their marketing's not creating demand. Their messaging doesn't connect. I mean, they're not happy because things are kind of broken and failing. On the other side, about 1/3 of clients that come to me and they say, Kent, you know what, we're doing really well, 40% compounded growth, 50%. They're saying, we think we could be at 100%. What could we do differently? What could we accelerate? We're frustrated that we're not maximizing our potential. Those are 2 sets of the same emotion, frustration, but they're different perspectives. And as you're filtering and qualifying your perfect client profile, you have to understand the root cause of their emotions. Are they excited about the potential, or are they frustrated with what they're missing? Different emotions trigger different responses. And this is why it's so critical. And I want to share with your audience here, how do you do that? How do you uncover and discover the psychographics? And it's like there's some mystery. It's not. You ask, how do you feel about the situation you're in right What has you excited about the potential? Where does your frustration come from? Does your whole team feel that way? It's interesting. When I have women and men in the room, men really struggle with this whole part of talking about feelings and emotions and things like that. Where I think women do an amazing job. And men have to step it up and get a lot better at this, because at the end of the day, it's all about how your prospect thinks and feels about where they are and why they're there, and then what you can do for them.
And you talked a little bit about this so far, but you say it's faulty when people are saying you have to spend money to make money. What's the problem with that statement that you've been hearing for as long as there's been business, right?
I've been told that for 40 years. Yeah. So the first premise is spend. And that's flawed in just itself. You have to invest to get a return. What happens is, and I'll just play that out of, you have to spend money. So we take that as entrepreneurs, business owners, and we think, oh, I've got to spend on marketing. Oh, I've got to spend on sales. Oh, I've got to spend on new materials. I've got to spend on my website. I've got to spend. And you have to step back and realize that there's a high correlation. When you spend, you buy activities or you buy something that's different, but not something that's better. And so it's very critical that you turn that spend into an investment. Well, how do you do that? Well, to make sure that your sales and marketing dollars, and if you've got a business, that can also be your time, to make sure that's an investment, you have to go through a process and a sequence. You've got to go through and check your company and say, is my business revenue ready? Have I gone through the steps and processes to make sure I'm in position, my business, my model, my revenue streams are all in position to generate as much revenue as possible. The second one is you have to then work through market ready. Is my targeting and my messaging and all the principles and components of being market ready, are these all in place? And it's that second phase, market ready, that most people just simply skip. $1 billion skip. They leapfrog from, I've got a product or service, I got to get it to market, I got to go sell it, I got to go get money back. We're under such stress and pressure to generate dollars in sales that we skip steps. And
what are the common steps that they miss?
Yeah, well, targeting's the absolute worst. Targeting, because, and I'll just say it, when I wish I could interact with everybody on the call today, but if I said, what is your number one perfect client profile psychographic, people can't tell me. They simply can't tell me. And I'll get well, I didn't even know what psychographics were. And so it's even an awareness level. But then I'll say, okay, so what are your top 5 characteristics of the client that you love, and prioritize them? Well, people can't tell me. And I say, okay, so you don't really even understand your buyer and your best buyer. Well, where do we go from there? And so that's misstepped. And then the second one is, there's a concept of packaging, and this is how you bundle your products or services so that it both attracts, engages, and converts quickly. And I have a story in the book for any of those that have staffing companies or really any kind of company. But by working through those first 2 phases, I went with a CEO of a staffing company into a sales call. I hate to ever think of them like that. They're business meetings. And he had me go with him because the potential was pretty big. And $5 million staffing company. We went to the meeting and we worked through that process of the packaging and the principles based on the perfect client profile and being revenue ready and knowing we could deliver and all those things. And he was hoping in his heart of hearts that we could get maybe a 7-figure contract, $1 million contract. Through discussions, and then we went into the whiteboard, and I mean, we put on pots of coffee with the prospect. We ended up getting a verbal commitment for a $5 million contract. In one meeting, we doubled the size of the company because we went through that process of talking about what's the fundamental marketplace problem that you want to solve versus what we're trying to sell you to solve. We started from scratch with the prospect, and it was interesting. It was different than what we had assumed.
Do you think people go in too much trying to sell the client as opposed to listening about the problem? Because I find that when I go with clients, I did something similar to like that with one of my clients. I went into a meeting and he started immediately trying to sell him. And I said to him, let's just call him Jim. I said, I'm just curious before we get started briefing him on what we do. I asked the client, What's the biggest problem that you're having right now? Tell us about what you're going through. And then he started doing it. Turned out we had like 4 different opportunities, just him outlining it. Do you find that's a big problem a lot? Is that people go right into the sales pitch?
So two things. One of them is they go into sales mode, and there's so many training companies today that are teaching people not to go into sales mode. They're putting in more what I call market survey mode. And this is dangerous, where you start asking the client a lot of questions. And now the next big one is now you start challenging the client or prospect with questions. And I'm like, stop it. I've been an executive at the top of a $1 billion company. If you came in there trying to sell me or doing a market survey, we're done in the first few minutes. I just don't have time. I should have been in 3 other meetings. And so when you walk through my door, if you're trying to sell something, you better deliver value. You better come through the door and share with me, here are the challenges that other companies like mine are having. Here's how they've tried to solve them. And here's why those typical solutions don't work. And here's some different approaches. I want to explore with you where you are, how you framed your problem, and is it a symptom or a root cause? Because at the end of the day, all I care about is solving your problem, whether you buy from me or not. When I can deprogram salespeople and teams to think that way, well, I've got a client today that they were about a 20% win rate. I've got lots of stories like this. Their win rates were about 20-25%, which is very typical, very average. Even companies that think they have 50-60% win rates, when we scrub them, they're about half that. By taking that different approach of taking the sales hat off and not putting on the marketing survey hat, but walking through the door with value, and educating the prospect on the potential or why things don't work, their win rates consistently now over the last 3 years have been 80%. And their deals are bigger, and they don't discount their prices.
If you want to give one piece of advice only for an investing for a B2C company, how to do better filtering, what would that be? So a business to consumer company, I don't know how much experience you have in that, but what would the filtering be to make sure you're putting your efforts in with the right people?
Yeah, so after you go through your revenue ready and your market ready, your targeting, the key part in there is the messaging. And it's so critical in the messaging that you attract and filter. And I'll share an example. I was reading another book last night, or I was looking through another book last night to see what all is out there about becoming a millionaire in 12 months. And I'm like, okay. And so I started reading through it, and it was all about how to sell on Amazon. And so as you dug into it, it was like, yeah, you can make a fortune on Amazon. Here's how I did it, and here's how others have done it. I thought, okay, that's really great. But in my subtitle is how to build a highly profitable, fast growth company. I didn't use the word business, company, because I'm trying to filter out people that are they're trying to do the 4-hour work week and trying to do these other things. We're on the beach somewhere where they're selling stuff through Amazon. That's fine. I'm not attacking that model or even those books. If that's your goal and objective, great. I'm trying to connect with people that want to run sustainable businesses where you've got employees, where you've got W-2s, or maybe you have fractional, but you're trying to actually build a company, create wealth, and maybe sell it someday. 2/3 of our clients end up selling because their company valuation, even if they're a small firm with 2 people, their company valuation gets to a point where they said that it's so worth it to sell and then retire or go start another company. But it's very important in your messaging, to answer your question, is you help people understand who doesn't fit as well as who does fit.
Yeah, I agree with you. You've been friends with Mark Cuban since college. Am I right about that?
We actually we went to the same college. We met in a parking lot in Dallas. I was getting some stuff out of my car, and I had an Indiana shirt on, a T-shirt. And this guy walks by, and he goes, "Hey, my name's Mark. I went to Indiana." And we shook hands, and we've now been lifelong friends. That was 1981, 82. So almost scarily, that's 40 years.
I know, where did it go? Yeah, I'm the same age as you. You wonder, where did it go?
I know, because I'm only 42 years old, right? So
yeah, of course, you're still that. What did he focus on as a business philosophy that has made him an enormous success, which relates to the concept that you talk about in the book, fundamental marketplace problem?
Yeah, so one of the principles in the chapter is, and this is absolutely foundational. If you're starting a business or you have a business, you've got to go back and frame this concept, because in many cases it evolves or has changed or been satiated, satisfied. Um, the fundamental marketplace problem is the reason for being. What is broken in the marketplace that creates a gap or an opportunity to be solved or served? And then the next step, which this is how you create wealth inside of businesses. The next step is not to form a business to offer a solution like everyone else. The next step is create the model that offers something different than everybody else. So when you can identify a problem or potential opportunity in a marketplace, you then want to say, what's the right model to solve this? I'll give you a personal example. I try to use all kinds of examples, large corporations, clients, my personal examples. I was interviewed the other day by a consulting, a podcast group, and they were all consultants, and they wanted to know, how would you apply the FMP to consulting? And I said, well, back 20 years ago, when I started my business, I didn't use the typical model of I'll come in and do a project for 3 to 6 months, charge you $100,000 and then be gone, or stay around for another 6 months, charge you another $100,000 for implementation. I said, for businesses under $10 million, they can't afford that kind of money. And so I created a model where I'm on retainer, to where I let your needs, I let your challenges, what you're trying to fix, I let that be the driver of the hammer, versus whatever you're doing, you're a nail and you need my hammer. That's the sales world. And I went through it and I said, I do other things that are counter to the typical consulting model, because to me it's flawed. I give away my intellectual property. I share my methods, my tools, my formulas. I mean, that's heresy in the consulting world. So I don't do projects, and I don't hold on to my black box of IP like it's prison food. I actually share it. I give it away, and people will say, "Oh my gosh, you give your stuff away, then you're not going to have any business. You'll run out of business." I found just the opposite. People love the tools and the templates. They say, how do I get more? How do I stay in your programs? My average client today in our high intensity programs has gone from 6 to 9 months to, I have some that have been in it 7 years, 10 years in our programs in a retainer based relationship. And what does that do? Well, now I'm back to creating wealth. I don't have to spend sales and marketing dollars attracting more clients, because we retain the clients, and I hope forever, as long as I can do this. So that's what I want your audience to understand is, as you attract and engage clients, how can you keep them forever? How can you continue to create things to help offer them? And so it's interesting. So the FMP that might bring me in is they have a sales problem, challenge, or a marketing problem, or challenge, or a growth challenge. In many cases, that's not the root cause, that's the symptom. And I find it over in operations, or I find it in strategy, or I find it in leadership. So I find it in another area, and I provide templates and tools to fix that area, which ends up fixing the sales area. And now all of a sudden their sales is growing. They have a different challenge. Now it's like, well, how do we bring on more sales talent? How do we optimize the talent? Or how do we market more effectively than just digital activities? So your FMP, your fundamental marketplace problem, is your reason for being. And it's why someone will buy from you. And then your model is why they will buy from you versus anyone else. And you absolutely must answer those questions, and do it with your team, or if you're a solopreneur, do it with your spouse or partner or whomever. You've got to talk through those questions and say, here's how I frame the problem in the marketplace. Here's what I see I'm trying to solve. Here's how everybody's doing it. Here's how I want to attack it differently. And in the book, I go through, and I've gotten a lot of feedback. People love these examples, I think because everybody loves pizza. I talk about how the pizza industry actually started, and then how it's evolved, and how new entrants have come into the pizza marketplace, which is like almost $40 billion today. How do you come in and get a piece of that when the market seems saturated, not just their cheese? So how do you penetrate that market and still make money? And so that's how you craft that different model. And I really need people to read that and then go, okay, so how is my model different? And then how have I evolved it to not be me too? Now, and somebody asked me the other day, what's the difference between a small business owner and an entrepreneur? And I said, a small business owner offers the same services as everybody else. Entrepreneur looks at the problem and goes, I can do it differently. I can offer a different approach, a different means or method to solving the problem in a faster, better, or smarter way. that's an entrepreneur. That's
Yeah,
what.
I agree with you that people have to think about how to truly differentiate yourself. I have somebody I'm working with that has a home healthcare business, and when you looked at a brochure, it looks like 100 other healthcare businesses.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so I said, what's really unique about what you're offering? You know, like if she's advertising it, I said, maybe you should be advertising that you have home healthcare workers that are sports fans or movie buffs. And so that way you can match your people with the customers. And that way the customer just doesn't feel like you just send a body over to watch their aging mom or grandmother or whatever. So I agree with you with that. How important is having the right product for the right market at the right time to attain the objectives you mentioned in the book? For example, if you're trying to sell banquet services during the pandemic, how, using your process and methodology, make that business into a huge winner when nobody can go in and use their service in a sense?
Wonderful question. And those that have, I can't remember all the chapters. I think it's chapter 13, which is called Blueprinting Optimization. And that sounds like kind of corporate speak or corporate gobbledygook, but basically what it means is, how do you constantly work at transforming your business to stay relevant to the fundamental marketplace problem? And so I'm back to that concept of FMP. Well, when COVID hit, the FMP changed. And in many cases, it went virtual. And so companies that were already working on that pre-COVID are doing pretty well today. Those that stayed in their old model, I use a lot of examples of restaurants because we all go out to restaurants. Those that stayed in their single revenue stream lane, walk-in traffic, and then were either had to close or shut down or partially shut down, they've been wiped out. I heard, I'm trying to think, I think it was Texas that 1,000 restaurants are closing forever every day. 1,000 restaurants are closing every day. And we go back and look at them and say, well, they all didn't need to close or have to close, but because their model was not flexible to offer other revenue streams, such as delivery or takeout or the big one, catering. If they didn't have those revenue streams in place, they couldn't play catch up. If you didn't have those business relationships and structure and model to do catering pre-COVID, I mean, it was just almost impossible to do it during COVID. And so this goes back, and very important, and this is how the parts all connect. And this is another key point that I want the audience to take is, you don't do this in isolation. You don't do like, okay, I've done my targeting, I'm all done. No, you've got to do your targeting, your packaging, your messaging, your pricing in market ready. As the FMP has evolved or is evolving, and every fundamental marketplace problem eventually gets solved or goes away. And I want to stop right there, because that's one of those that if you don't own anything else today in your notes, own that one. The FMP you were solving or solving today will eventually go away. And if you don't prepare for that, if you don't plan for that, and I do a whole chapter on, you absolutely must be planning that what you're counting on to be successful today is not going to be there in 1, 3, or 5 years. And what would you do with your model to prepare for that? I have a lot of friends that are there's keynote national speakers. That's their whole gig. They can't get on an airplane. Their whole business model's been wiped out. So to further answer your question, Mark, I don't think I answered it. Those companies that were doing banquets and events. So here's what's interesting. People are still getting married. And so now how do we do virtual weddings? How do we do virtual get-togethers? How do we do the virtual pre-dinner? How do we do those things? And the cool thing about the value proposition is that could leave you a lot more money to put on the ring or the honeymoon or the house you want to buy or whatever else, but you still want to hold the event. And what you have to do in your model is say, we're the experts at holding virtual events, and this is how we bring in your family. This is how we Zoom call. This is how we record it to create the portfolio. I mean, I could just go through the diatribe of here's who we target. Here's the packages we offer. Here's the messaging of the value proposition. Here's the pricing structure to get you started, or to have the most, the
So the
worldwide
bottom line
virtual
is
wedding.
you just have to adjust to the situation and pivot your business, and have to take a look at what the current set of circumstances has provided a whole new set of opportunities. And when I was reading Gone with the Wind, Rhett Butler had said in the book that they said, "Oh my God, the whole South is falling apart." He said, "No, now there's all kinds of new opportunities
Yeah.
in the South." And he was ticking off the ways he was going to make business. And Scarlett said, "Wait a minute, I think I got to get into some of that." And so he just basically, his message was, anytime things change, that means there's new opportunity, and you just have to adjust your business model for that. Are there certain processes for selling services that are different than selling products?
No, but here's what is. There, and you know, when people ask me what's the great confusion in sales, what's most broken about sales, almost everybody always answers it's something about sales skills or sales training or sales approach, and it's not. The greatest confusion, and I'll give you a little background. I have designed, built, turbocharged over 1,000 sales organizations from first hire to literally having thousands of salespeople in complex sales doing very large contracts. The number one issue and challenge is that there are two kinds of sales. There are two sales environments with kind of a hybrid or combination as a third. And this is where how unknown is this, or how little do people are conscious of the fact there are actually two sales environments. And this is one thing that destroys most small businesses. They don't understand there's two sales environments. Less than 1% of sales managers, because I've taken the polls and I've been in the rooms with them, less than 1% of sales managers can articulate the two different sales environments. They and their team and company are set up for not just success, but absolutely sub-optimization. They are set up to burn a fortune in sales and marketing dollars and never come close to their potential. So let me explain those, because I'm hoping you want to know. The first one is what's called a simple sale. It's a transaction sale. It's a single buyer, single decision, single step, and most importantly, single set of emotions. And you can have products you never want to say, well, that's all product sales. Not actually. There are product sales that don't fit in there. Big ticket product sales, large product sales, massive product sales that take a long time to purchase. So that's the first one. And for example, if you're in retail, or you're in where you have retail traffic, or you're selling certain products or services, you could be in simple sales. There is nothing wrong. This is not judgmental. This is just how the world is wired. And so in simple sales, you know, you're going to make it on transactions and your turns and things like that. And so you can make fortunes in that world. However, there's another environment, which is called complex sales. And complex sales basically means there's going to be a combination of multiple steps, multiple buyers, multiple decisions, and multiple emotional constructs. And not understanding the two, and how certain strategies will work in one will absolutely fail you in the other, and not how to commingle those, it is absolutely destructive. So here's a great example of that, and whether anybody's in retail or not. If you have a retail product, or for example, I have a book, and I go to a bookstore and I say, hey, you're not carrying my book. Would you carry my book? And they say, oh yeah, we're the owner, we're independent. We like your book. We'll carry your book. That's a simple sale. Now, if I were going to Costco or Walmart or a major chain, I am now in the middle of the ocean. I am in a complex sale. There's going to be barriers, hurdles, committees, groups, organizations that want me in and don't want me in. Now, all of a sudden, it's going to be very complex. Most sales in B2B and B2G, business to government, are complex sales. So you could have a business where you're in both. And so where you're in the simple sale, that's great. But if you're in the complex sale, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. In the book, I use an example. This is very important. I need you to read this so that you understand this. A friend of mine had opened a chain of sandwich shops. And I talked through the challenges and frustrations and everything. And he did his homework. And he bought into a great franchise. And he had done the due diligence off the charts. But he never predicted, and it wasn't in the scenario or the planning, that what happens on a rainy night. What happens when a school bus of kids show up and they're out of French fries or something? I mean, the world blows up. So we talked for a while, and he goes, Ken, I'm struggling to get my stores open. I said, is that your greatest stress or frustration? Here we are talking about emotions now. He said, well, yeah, it's getting the stores open. I said, well, let me ask you, isn't your greatest fear or frustration right now your ability to pay back the investors? And he goes, yeah. Now that you mention it, that's what keeps me up at night. And I said, do your investors care where your money comes from? Do your investors check that each time you open a store and when you hit your 8th store that you're going to get your payback? And he goes, well, I think they do. And I said, really? And he said, they don't. I said, great. Have you tried catering? Have you gone to outside businesses and offered to companies for events or lunches or things? Have you tried that? He said, yeah, and he started to talk to me. He goes, yeah, we've done a few of those. And I said, well, how were they? He goes, they're actually really great. He goes, we can predict it. We can plan it. I know the staff that's required. I know the materials. I mean, he just went down through this litany of everything that had him excited. And I said, great. Why don't we do more of those? And then all of a sudden he got out of his paradigm of, I have to open stores. Like a lot of us are in these paradigms you've got to get out of. He goes, I don't have to open stores. I could do catering. And I said, okay, but this is going to come with a big warning. Your stores are simple sales. People walk in, they buy a sandwich and they leave, or they eat it and they leave, I guess. When you start calling on companies, you're now dealing with committees and groups, organizations, even planners and all that kind of stuff. You're in a complex sale. You have to understand how to navigate through a complex sale, and your business, your website, your materials, your information, your sales competencies all must be designed for that complex sale, or you'll hit some on occasion, but you're going to burn a fortune in time, money, and resources getting on. And this is where, this is why, and I want to share with the audience, if you've had this experience, I mean, I could see people who will cry just through their pictures, whether they're live or not. This is why 98% of sales first hires fail. This is why the number one come to tears for entrepreneurs is hiring that first salesperson, or that second, or that third, or that fifth. And they can't understand, well, gosh, great resume, he's really successful in sales, and he comes over and it's a disaster. And now we're not sure how to fire him, and we got so much money invested, or her. What do we do? And it's like, we give them 9 or 12 months. I'm going, no, you should have known before you hired him. And if you don't, you should have known in the first couple of weeks. Is there a fit in the environment you're in? Okay, now I want to throw one more curveball in here just to make this fun, because I've got to teach you how to be successful with your business. There's what's called a hybrid or a combination sales environment. And that is where and I'll give you an example of this too. This is where a sale could start out as a simple sale and traverse or switch into a complex sale, or vice versa. Usually it switches up. It rarely switches down. It does on occasion. What I mean by that is a big ticket, long sales cycle can sometimes switch down to an individual saying, you know what, I'm just going to sign off this. I'm going to buy it. Forget the committee. The heck with the group. I'm going to use my authority. I'm going to push it through. We're done. That can happen on occasion. For every case day like that, I have 1,000 that it went the other way. It started off as a simple sale and all of a sudden became a complex sale. Here's an example. One of our clients in wealth management. Now, they typically target people that have about $1 million to invest. And every once in a while, the way it happens is the person comes in, maybe brings their spouse or not, for $1 million. A lot of people, that's play money. Here's my $1 million, put it in your thing and see what you can do in your system. Well, on occasion, someone will come in and they'll start talking. And as I've worked with this client, the person might say, well, you know what? I'm using 2 other wealth management firms. I'm thinking about pulling all my money over. I've got 5 million or 10 million I want to put into your model, but I've got to bring in my accountant. I've got to bring in my estate planner. My spouse needs to be in the room. And now all of a sudden it just triggered into a complex sale. Multiple steps, multiple people, multiple decisions, multiple emotional constructs. And one of the biggest things I've been helping that company learn is how do we show flexibility and agility to move to that complex sale without blowing it. Because most sales teams or business owners, they get frustrated with, oh, okay, well, and now I got to meet with them, and now I got to meet with them. And now all of a sudden, what could have happened in a meeting now is going to take 2 to 3 to 6 months. That just makes a lot of people's heads explode. Well, you got to design your business for that. And back to the sequence that I give you in the book, Mark, is preparing your business to collapse that complex sale, to make it easy for the buyer to buy. And I'll just go ahead and share this with you, and I could just go on for days.
I have another question
Oh, okay.
related to the
I'll
sales.
stop there. Well, I'll come back. Go ahead, Mark. What do you want?
So I think one of the biggest problems everybody has, especially entrepreneurs when they're hiring salespeople, is what's the right profile you should be looking for, and what kind of questions should you be asking these folks when you're hiring them? Yeah, because you said, look, this person had somebody for 9 months, and you said, hey, they should have known before they hired them if they were the right person. So when you're putting together a profile, what's the ingredients of the profile, and maybe what are the 1 or 2 most important questions to ask when you're interviewing?
Yeah, so one of them, my clients tell me one of the most important things they ever learn from me is they stop hiring resumes, personalities, people, and social media accounts. They stop it. That's how most people hire. The history, the resume, the background, that's how they hire. That is no predictor of future results. Matter of factly, I declare resumes today as the greatest form of false advertising there is out there, even more so than politicians. The resume is
a tough one.
But I actually have been in meetings where I actually know the background, I know the person, I know the company, and I see a resume and I go, that wasn't your title or role. I don't say it like that. I just let them walk themselves into the trap to where title inflation and results inflation. Now, did you do that, or were you part of a team? Oh, okay. So you were part of a team that did that, not you. So how do you do that? How do you get through the clutter? And you don't need to do 4-hour interviews, and however you source them, I'm agnostic, whether you use recruiters, you find them, you bring on people from whatever institution or association you're part of. Where you find them, I don't care. But first of all, they need to be talent, and talent has what are called proven competencies. And I expand this out in the book because as a business owner, as a business leader, you absolutely must own the understanding between the difference of skills and competencies. Because it's competencies that are going to predict success in the future. Skills are things you can do. Skills is PowerPoint. Skills is I can send an email. I can do that. Competencies are clusters of skills applied effectively to produce consistent results. So skills are things I can do. All right. Competencies are clusters of skills. So I want to give you an example because I think it's always important to have an example of this. To put together a PowerPoint presentation is a kind of a skill, maybe a competency, but kind of a skill, right? To hold an effective, compelling boardroom presentation requires 15 skills. That's a cluster. That's a competency. And so understanding how to do that. So now what does all that mean? That's what you have to interview for. You have to interview for competencies. So I use what I call a lot of behavioral-based interviewing techniques to explore for competencies and how they were applied. Walk me through how you developed, or walk me through a situation where you won a major deal. What was your strategy? What did you craft to do that? Walk me through an opportunity that you failed, that you didn't win. Walk me through what were the wrong strategies, or what happened that went wrong. What were the mistakes made? And so what you're trying to do is uncover. This is the absolute, I don't have a better way to do this, because the being able to prove competencies, and see, first of all, you can't cut and paste the answers. People can't make this up. That's the first thing. You've got to eliminate the fluff and stuff and things that they're masters of interviewing today, because they've memorized these lines and all that, but you can't make up behavioral-based answers. And so walk me through a time, tell me about a situation, give me insights into how you do X. That's what lets you know if they have that competency or not. And what's really important is that provable competencies are the greatest predictor of future performance. Provable competencies are the greatest predictor of future performance. And I just want to share with the team, because a lot of you are not hiring W-2 employees, you're using fractional employees. Do the same thing. For those companies you hire, like my PR firm and my marketing firm, my SEO firm, I actually talked through with them, I interviewed them for competencies. Because you have to make sure, as a small business or medium size or even large, you can't afford a single mishire. You can't get it wrong. The margin for error, the cost, and the time will destroy you creating wealth inside your business. Yeah,
I
Mark.
agree with you about the process. That's what I say too. If somebody's hiring me, I tell them, let me walk you through the process we're going to go through. So they understand that. Here's a question for you. You said for B2C businesses, messaging is really important for filtering. Could you please give tips on how to create clear messages which will be honest, effective, but not too alienating?
Yeah, and it all starts with your FMP, your target audience, and that should then create what's called your value proposition. And it's interesting that language, or those two words have been around since about 1985. Value proposition. They're still not well understood in business, but your value proposition is how you solve a problem uniquely and satisfy the conflict inherent to the problem. Okay, I just gave you a lot of stuff there. Let me unpack that.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me unpack that. What I'm saying is, I'll use me as an example, because if I use other companies, then people go, well, that's not my company. But the problem, the FMP today is, how do you grow and scale revenues, profits, and sales without spending money? That's the fundamental marketplace problem. We're coming out of COVID today, and I'm in Texas, so we open up next Wednesday. Businesses open up whether you wear a mask or not, and I don't want to get into politics, but they're open. The problem is, the fundamental marketplace problem is, now companies are going to have to try and figure out how to grow, how to message, how to deliver, and don't have any money to do it. They burned all their money trying to survive. So how do they create that? Well, that's a fundamental marketplace problem, and the value proposition says that's what you're going to have to figure out how to do. That's what's in my model, and so I use that. And if you go to my website, please sign up for my blogs. Go to my website. Everything is sort of centered around that message. How do you make money without spending money? And then I talk about then you've got to invest. Don't hear me that, well, you can't spend any time or any money. Yes, you can scale, but you still need to invest. So it's very important to let people know who you're looking for and who you're not looking for. And it's okay. And you've got to do that in your messaging, oral, written, your website, and in many cases, to further answer the question, is put out there, here's the type of client we're looking for. Here's the type of client that fits in our programs. And I'm very upfront about, if you don't have the will, any way will do. But if you've got the will, if you've experienced the frustration or all that, then we've got something for you. But the point here is, it doesn't need to be clever or fancy or marketing gobbledygook. It just needs to be real clear at the front of your website is, here's our value proposition, and here's who this fits for best.
Hey, Kent, I've got one more question for you, because we're running out of time here.
Yeah.
If there's one mistake that failing entrepreneurs make that is avoidable, what is that?
Yeah. So another one of these myths that you just absolutely have to throw away from last century is this one. If you start, run, and grow a business, you're going to be successful, you're going to make money, and you're going to create wealth with that business. That is a complete and total lie. I was just talking to somebody earlier today. I said, we're going to move you off your core competency of delivering, and I'll share this with you because I won't share the name of the company. I never do, but they're in the benefits space. And I said, we're going to augment your core competency today. And that core competency is that you deliver cost-saving benefit programs to your client. We're going to augment that. I don't want to remove off that, because he offers world-class services and solves a problem. But what we've got to do is augment that. Your new core competency has to be, and learn how to create wealth doing it. In other words, how to generate sales, revenue, and profits without spending more money, time, or resources doing it. And so the number one thing, if I could get your audience to own this, is I've instead of just starting, running, and growing a business and hoping for success, you now have to design your business for success, to make money, so you can be around, so you can hire more people, and so you can deliver your value proposition to the marketplace. If you never learn how to create wealth inside your business and earn money, then in so many cases, without money, everything's a problem in the business.
Well, Ken, I can't tell you how much we appreciate you spending the time with us. I really enjoyed your book. I think based on the comments here, the people said they enjoyed it as well. And I loved your energy.
Oh, thank you. Yeah,
And I'm sorry we didn't have enough time to tell us about your experience of being on Shark Tank, because they probably would have enjoyed that the most. Well, I hope everybody has a great, safe weekend. And Kent, when you come out with the second book, you have to let us know so we can have you again.
all right.
Have a
That
great
sounds
weekend,
great.
everybody. Please stay safe.